Okay, good to go. So another case of stuff that we don't understand, which is great.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the dilemma that it pulls up. So
yeah, it's good. I feel like they're good questions.
yeah. All right, so it says we'll start with a prayer. Jimmy, do you want to offer that?
Yeah, I can do that. Dearly Father, we thank you for this day that we can come and learn about business skills, and we're thankful for the opportunity we have to attend the school and that we can have good quality education. Please help us to use our skills and talents so we can better our lives and help those around us. And please bless us with the Spirit at all times. And these things we pray for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, so it says it kind of gives a summary of stuff we've gone through so far. Some key takeaways and things like that. So I'll just read some of these things and we'll get into the study. So it says, so far in this course, we have seen a few common threads and takeaways. Founders matter. Experience, passion, and vision shape the business and can make the difference between success and failure. Business plan at the founding stages of the company is a collection of hypotheses. In other words, guesses. Startups create value by systematically testing hypotheses and making changes to the plan when the test results indicate a need to change. Also a lot about the viability of the business, where more information is needed. Previous cases analyzed business models the founders had already chosen. Now we get to see a company at the moment of choice. So kind of a cool summary of the stuff we worked on. And then it just says that now we get to be involved in the decision making instead of seeing what these people have done and then looking back on it. So let's see. Pretty much just ask us straight up, which business model option did you favor? So what did you guys think of which model would work the best?
I didn't quite understand what the third one was exactly. I was getting kind of tired, but I kind of understood what the first two were about. The first one was you go after the competition, but then they lower their prices and long enough just to sink you. And then once you're gone, they raise their prices back up again. And so basically, they're just being cutthroat and killing you at that point, right? That's the first possibility. The second one was you go after additional market share that's not there. Let's sign those people up. And then I forgot what the third one was. So far, I'm kind of leaning towards number two, but I need more explanation on what number three is.
Yeah.
Number three is basically they're not worried about the revenue off of just selling the unit, and also what are they, test strips?
Yeah.
So they would basically give those out like at a pretty cheap rut. Like I don't think they're going to make a lot of money on that. But what they're hoping on is that because they have such a huge market, they're going to be able to collect data, and then this data will be valuable for. I mean, if you have DNA data, you could sell that to huge pharmaceutical companies, people that are doing research. So I mean, there's a huge revenue stream potentially in the future, but that's more of a long-term thing. But
okay, I'm sorry.
This has the data analytics. It's the riskiest, but it's also has the most potential long-term.
Okay.
A way more potential long-term, and it's more of like a future, like thinking ahead, like it's more progressive, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of what I gathered. I mean, it would take a long time for it to be really profitable, and like looking at the spreadsheet with the free cash flow model, like the traditional strategy is more like super short term, start, but then like their revenue would probably peter off and wouldn't be making so much long term. But the data analytics, I mean, it's a long term plan pretty much.
Mm-hmm. So like what I saw at all three of these is if you're just going purely off, like you can pick one that's the safe bet, or you can pick one that has higher revenue potential. But I think one of the main things, it kind of made a point in the case, but it said that like the founder didn't really care about making money. He was more about helping people. And like oddly enough, like the data analytics has more potential for revenue, but it also has the most potential to help people. Like that has, you can cure diseases, help. I mean, there's a lot of good you could do with that one. So if you're gonna look at that point, like I think that one would be the choice, just based off of his vision. He wants to be there to help people.
I agree. I mean, that's something that stood out to me is that like the data plan kind of aligns with his vision for the company.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of going into question 5, but what did you think, Josh?
I was on the side of the data analytics because, again, it would be tough to make sure it works from the get-go, but I just feel like long-term it would work the best. I mean, my father-in-law worked for a kind of a law company that they owned the rights to all of this law data. So they had all of these cases on file, and they would sell the rights to that information to lawyers.
Huge money.
And it reminded me of this. It's like lawyers will always need access to that information, and so these companies will always be able to make money as long as they have all that data.
So basically, they're kind of making money through the back doorway, then, in other words, right?
Yeah, it's a little different. It's like,
okay.
It's like huge data collection agencies like Qualtrics, for example. They only collect data and they sell it. That's it. But they're very successful. That's all they do.
And if they do it that way, it's a way to avoid head-to-head competition with the competitor.
Oh yeah, they're not even a. So for me, number one choice for me is data analytics, but I also think the choice number 2, razor and razor blades, because they're opening into new markets. So for me, it would be between those, and I'm more leaning towards data analytics. I haven't done the Excel. Did you guys look at the Excel sheet?
Not yet.
It's kind of interesting to see the differences between all of them. Like,
yeah.
Let me see if I can share my screen. This chart alone is interesting. I can find it.
So one thing I noticed is I kind of thought the Excel sheet was like extra work, but all it is it's basically to help us. Like it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go over that, it makes it easier to understand. That's all it is.
Yeah. So this chart really kind of stood out to me, just because it shows like how much they're going to go into the negative in terms of their cash flow, and then how quickly they will rebound. So like the traditional one, because they're making such good margins and they're selling a lot of their products, like yes, initially for like the first year they're going to go down, but then they gain cash really quickly because they're selling a lot. And then with the second one, it takes a while for them to really pick up their revenue again. But then the third one, obviously, like because they're not making any money off their products, it's going to take a long time for them to collect that data. But then once they have it, then they can start selling it, and that's where they're going to make their margins.
Okay.
So it was
that's interesting
to see all that. I mean, because if we're looking at just these ones here, so total cash flow, and again, this is just cash flow, but I think this is after like 10 years. Yeah, after 10 years, the data model would have the most cash flow. Plus, I think they would have the most upside from the cash flow. Like they're growing from there. I'm afraid with the traditional version that like they're going to run out of people to sell this stuff to.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as that way, like there's a huge market share already, and they're only. I mean, the case said there's basically 2,000 clients. Like that's it. it would be expensive, and they're not really changing anything. They're just kind of, it's just a business at that point.
Well,
but yeah, there's not a lot of risk in it.
They're just lowballing all of the other competitors, and like it says in the case, sometimes the competitors will drop their prices really quick to weed those out and then jack them up again.
I feel like if you were just if you just wanted to make a quick buck and not really worry about no risk, and you just didn't want to work that hard, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I can't remember if it mentioned this, but it mentioned that like there's buyout possibilities. Like with the traditional style, maybe they'll make enough of a dent in market share for these huge companies that they'll just be like, okay, whatever, we're just going to buy you out so you can stop stealing our market share.
Yeah, they said one company was bought out for like $750 million. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yep, I would like to be a part of that company.
And as far as the razor blade, is that what it's called? Razor blade or whatever?
Yeah.
So they're just.
Do you think it's the same problem where you think that as they keep going up, that they're all of a sudden going to tank, or they're going to hit a wall and run out of people, kind of like similar to the traditional, or not quite as fast, or?
No, the razor blade model, they have more. It's kind of like a developing market, because they were going to sell to like food conglomerates.
Go down at first, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's because the price wouldn't be as much. Because with the traditional model, the machine would be 40,000. With the razor blade model, it would only be like 5,000 to 7,000, which brings in new market possibilities.
Yeah.
So I mean, if they can hit those markets and kind of own that part of the market share, then they could kind of keep doing that for a while.
Yeah, okay. So, but we're all kind of in agreement that it's best to just get your data under control first.
Yeah, I just think, and again, if he had said that his main goal was to just create a cool company that would get bought out, then I would go with traditional. But it sounds like he wants to make a difference.
Yeah, and I mean, and then that's what we've learned in business school, that I mean, when it comes to wanting to do business, you want to have a reason, a good reason, other than making money.
Yeah.
You know, a passion behind what you do. So, and to want to help people. So yeah, I agree now that I understand it better. We should go for that direction, because not only will it help people, but in the end, according to what we're talking about, it seems like it's even more lucrative in the end by selling that data to investors that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So let's see, number 5, give each person who voted a chance to share why he or she voted that way. Check mark. If a choice is left without someone voting for it, discuss as a group the pros and cons of the choice as well. Specifically for each alternative, discuss the following. So we've talked about potential customers, which customers would be expected to pay for the product. Kind of talked about that a little bit too. Like with traditional, it's the current customers they would have to. I think that's another concern I have for traditional, is that like the people who would be buying this machine are people that kind of already have the machine.
Yeah, it's just hospital, like data. What is it called? Basically, like hospitals, healthcare centers. They said 2,000 customers, and they would only have like 5 salesmen.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much just a cheaper version.
So the competitors and their likely response, that one's interesting. I didn't think about that, because this was so far ahead of them. I think that obviously they're going to try to catch up. I don't know what kind of property right, like intellectual property rights they have to this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they're going to be years behind them at least.
Yeah. Probably
and so and I also think that like people see the need for that type of data, so they're going to want to do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
I agree.
From the tradition, I think it's the traditional model. Yeah, even they recognize that, like it says, our target customers would be those served by Illumina end-of-life technologies, and there's no way they wouldn't retaliate. So under that one, it's like, obviously, those huge companies are going to come in and try to do something to kick them out of the market.
Yeah, it even sounds like they kind of had a period of time where they were selling, possibly even at a loss, just to get rid of the competition. Because I mean, they had kind of a monopoly at this. They just charge what they want.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too: is their customers, they have money. Like those huge medical facilities. Like I mean, they have a lot of money. So.
Yep.
So the founder's goals, we kind of talked about that. But I think we didn't mention, he still wants to make money.
Right.
Oh yeah, definitely. He definitely wants to make money.
Investors' goals, that's more money driven. They want a return on their investment. That's it.
Yeah, the thing that's going to be hard to sell to investors is because the data analytics model is going to be so long-term that you have to make sure you have long-term investors who are willing to buy into the program. And
yeah, and they have
to
more
wait.
of a they have to believe in the product to have it be able to hang on that long.
Yeah.
So I'll read the next part. It says, using a polling tool that allows students to vote and see the overall results, go through the following questions. Using the Excel model you created before class, answer the following questions individually and then compare them as a group. So I guess let's just go through, if you want, you just pull up that Excel sheet and then we'll just go over the EBIT over sales ratios. EBIT? I never even heard of that. Interest before earnings and there's not appreciation. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead and read that question now. Can you see the Excel sheet?
It says, yeah, I can see it. It says if we increase the EBIT over sales and hold everything it's equal, time to pay back increases, decreases, or it remains the same.
So time to pay back, it should increase.
Which one is this? So this would be on tab 1, FCF definition.
There we go. Okay.
So
if we increase this, then we can see those pop it up to 15%. So time to pay back changes pretty quickly. I'll go back and forth. So 5%. For cumulative free cash flow, it takes like 6 years. If we have 15%, it's after the second year, first year.
Yeah, so if it goes up, payback period goes, faster.
Yeah.
So time to pay back. And I'm assuming payback means like payback to investors?
I think it's like reaching zero. Like
to break even.
Breaking even, right?
Okay. So it increases.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely does.
It says once everyone has responded, compare the answers. We all agreed on that.
Yeah.
It says, and then the second part is if NOA. What is NOA?
Net operating assets.
If net operating assets increases, cash flow. So I'm going to change this. Cash flow decreases. So you don't want. That makes sense. You don't want as many assets.
Yeah. So if you bump this up to like 40, then you
you're
have
red.
a ton of assets kind of building up.
Or is that in the form of like inventory, like too much inventory or something, or
inventory or any it's just working capital. You have too much money in the business instead of like cash free.
Yeah, so it's working capital and property, plant, and equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't have too much money invested in that for sure if you're not careful.
Yeah. So I mean, it looks like the ideal is high EBIT and low NOAA,
Okay.
if possible.
Makes sense.
All right. So one says once every. What is? Can you guys see that graph? All I see is like a little box with a question mark on the question page.
Let's see. I don't see a graph.
You
Yeah.
see like a big box where there should be something.
I don't see. I see a big box, but I don't see any graph.
All right. So I mean, it says on the curve below, which segment represents the highest burn rate?
Yeah, because it's just a blank graph for me, so I don't know what the answer is.
So there is a burn rate graph on the overview on the Excel.
Yeah.
Does it have it?
It mentions burn rate.
Huh.
And your burn rate is just when you're burning. It's just when you're spending the most money, and you're not getting like it's when you're in a deficit.
You're not able to put it back in after the money's gone. Kind of like the whole cake financial thing, right?
Yeah. I think it's the amount of like. I mean, if you're looking at a graph like these graphs here, like a steep burn rate would be like right here, because you're burning through cash really quickly compared to here. Like here, you're still burning through cash, but not as bad. And like here, so here you're burning through cash quickly, kind of settles off, and then you burn through a lot more cash here. So I think anytime there's like a negative line that's really steep, then you're just burning through cash.
Have you looked through this Excel file like a lot?
Not a ton. I've just kind of messed with some numbers a little bit.
Yeah. On tab 3, the financing implications.
Yeah.
It says on each strategy, it says lowest point in the future cash flow curve.
Yeah.
Would that be the amount of financing needed? So like the first question there.
Yeah.
How much capital would you raise? It would just be the lowest point on the curve, correct? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's the lowest point on the curve. So with the data, you'd need a ton of financing, or in terms of like, so you'd have to go into debt or have a lot of investment to be able to make that model work, because you would need what, $67 billion.
Yeah, that's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
So I'm just going to fill that in right now. Traditional strategy.
Is that in thousands, or I can't.
I think it's in millions. I don't
know if it says it up there, does it?
It doesn't, but it might be in thousands. I don't know.
It's got to be either thousands or millions. I'm sure.
Actually, it looks like it's thousands.
Okay.
So you would need 67. So the data one, you'd need 67 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and then it gives a net present value.
Yeah, so that's the total value of the company.
So the net present value using the razor blade strategy is actually lower than the traditional, and it looks like it's like more work. So I would just boot that one right off the bat. I mean, it's more risk and it's less net present value, so that would just be scratched at that point.
Yeah, but it kind of depends on what you're looking for, and a lot of these things, it says these percentages are assumptions. Like I messed around with the estimated growth rate assumptions.
Oh, I was looking at the other page. The third, number 3.
Yeah. What you change in number 2 changes the graph to number 3.
Oh, okay, it's connected. Cool.
Yeah, so like let's say over here in the data years plus 6, so it shows their growth rate is 50%. If I bump that up to like 60%, then the graph in the third one is like, then they're killing it.
Yeah, when I first saw this, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be up all night doing this stuff, but it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So if I like, I'm gonna reset all of the initial values, and if we do that, because I messed some stuff around, the
Where's
data
the reset button?
On number 2, it's up at the top. Reset to initial values.
Oh, there it is.
So if I do that, then the net present value of the data model is 49,000 or million.
Wait, where's that number at?
On the third page now.
No, okay, yeah. That's what I was looking at. So
Yeah.
doing like the preset data, that's more okay.
I mean, I just think long term that's the best. All right, so let's keep going here. It has us kind of talk about discuss until the group settles on a single response. So what strategies have we seen that flatten or lengthen the cash flow curve? Specifically try to draw the cash flow curves for Dr. John's products, Rent the Runway, and Dropbox.
Oh wow, so it's all of them. So what strategy flatten or lengthen the cash flow? So
oh, sorry. Well, as far as Rent the Runway, they were considering bringing in more cash flow, weren't they? To the point where they were possible to fall under, because they were trying to bring in so much possibility of business that they probably would have made all the money, but they didn't have they at least Joshua and I thought that they probably didn't have the internal nuts and bolts of the business going first, for it to work.
Yeah,
there wasn't enough maintenance and engineering of the business going, even though they were doing so well. They're about ready to grow past their capacity. So in that case, their cash flow seemed to be going up, right?
Well, I can't remember what the time periods were, but like I remember at one point they said they were burning through like $300,000 a month.
Yeah, that's for Cake Financial.
Oh, was that for Cake Financial? That's right.
Yeah, Cake Financial was burning through that like crazy. They couldn't get their cash flow going at all.
Yeah.
Unless you want to call that negative.
I think the curve would be more the cash flow, but it's the how much debt they go into.
Oh,
yeah.
The cash flow is about how much debt they go into?
That's their cash flow. So if they don't have a huge debt, I mean, they get positive cash flow quicker, and then based on your growth, I mean, it would take off if it's linear. It could go up way quicker. But yeah, I mean, it has to do with what they owe.
Yeah.
So that's why, like in this case, like the analytical side, there's a lot more investment required because they're not making money at first, and that's why it kind of goes way down and then will shoot up later.
Yeah.
But it moves down a lot more.
Oh, so we're talking about how much negative cash flow goes because of borrowing money then, right?
Yeah, it's essentially borrowing money until your cash from revenue starts balancing that out. Because you're still probably going to keep borrowing money, I mean, throughout the entire business.
Cake is a perfect example, right?
Yeah. So Cake never had enough revenue to get their cash flow going up again. It just kind of like kept going down probably.
Yeah.
They were a mess for sure.
And that was they had a huge borrowing expense because it was a tech company.
Yeah.
as far as Dropbox, I don't remember what was going on with them. Starting to get to the point where it's too far out. So
I know, right? It's only a couple weeks.
we're doing
it's a lot of cases.
Well, I do know they didn't advertise very much, so I don't know. Did they get a lot of investing? Do you guys remember, or did they borrow money for Dropbox?
Dropbox, they had venture capitalists.
Yeah.
Money, yeah. But I don't remember what, or I don't know.
I feel like they were able to turn, like, their cash flow probably went up pretty soon. I don't think it was like skyrocketing, but I feel like they were able to, like, sure, they were probably negative at first, but then they were able to kind of rebound relatively quickly because their product was so good.
Yeah.
I think like the main issue in that case was that, like, okay, so our cash flow is kind of steady. How do we get it to go up again? Because revenue was something they were struggling with, because like 98% of their users were using it for free.
Uh-huh.
So I'm curious what their cash flow would have been. I mean, I'm assuming it would have started to go positive, but probably not very quickly.
Yeah, it's just like knowing from like what I know generally about that industry is it takes years.
Yeah. And Rent the Runway, they probably I feel like they had an initial like negative cash flow for probably not that long. I mean, just in terms of like building the company. But then once they launched, like they had a super successful launch, so their cash flow probably spiked kind of quick. But then
I remember it took them, I think it took them 4 rentals, average of 4 rentals per dress to get them to break even on that cost.
Right.
I remember right. So I mean, I don't feel like that would be that long. Maybe.
I think when they first launched, they were doing pretty well. I can't remember if they actually like how in terms of number of dresses and things like that, but I feel like in like the first 2 months of November and December, they were doing really well. So their cash flow was probably pretty good. But then, like, the biggest issue is what happens after that.
What Dr. John's product? That was the toothbrush.
Yeah.
I don't remember if he went into debt with that or if I feel like. No, they had to
obviously get the financing to build it.
Yeah, because he had a group of people that already had money and they just kind of did it themselves.
Yeah. I can't remember the financials from that one.
Yeah, me either. I don't remember because they were cheap. I don't think their profit margins were very big, so I think it would have been more of a gradual curve for sure.
Yeah, probably.
Cool. So I'll read B. It says next, describe to each other what would happen if Dr. John's, if they had decided to build an independent company rather than get acquired. I don't even remember if did they get acquired?
That was about the toothbrush.
Yeah, I don't think it actually told us what happened. But I mean, if he were to build an independent company, he would have to probably invest more into the company, and the cash flow would have to the cash flow would be delayed further, so he probably wouldn't go positive for a while longer.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, you're right on that. If they get acquired, it would be a really quick.
Yeah.
And when you're acquiring something, you're basically just acquiring their intellectual property. Like a lot of times, they don't even have like the sales behind it.
Right.
What activities would John have done differently? So yeah, I mean, he would. It's a longer. I feel like there's a lot more blood, sweat, and tears involved if you're just gonna do it your own and just go the long haul.
Yeah. So what impact would cash flow curve have on these activities? So I mean, I think if he went independent, it would steepen like negative, and then slowly shallow out and maybe go up back to positive. But it wouldn't be, if he got acquired, then it would be like, in terms of like his personal like cash flow, it would be negative pretty quickly, flattens out, and then as soon as he gets acquired, then it's like, boom, cash. We got bought out.
Yeah.
Says, discuss the same for Rent the Runway. If the founders of Rent the Runway had been able to convince the dress designers to retain ownership of the dresses, what impact would have that had on Rent the Runway's cash flow? So if they were able to convince the dress designers to retain, so that they wouldn't have to buy it.
Yeah. So
they're basically just a rental service at that point with no assets.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it would steepen up.
Yeah, it would definitely go up because they wouldn't have any whatever net operating assets really. I mean, they'd have some, but it would be really small.
Yeah. This is if they sell. They sell the dresses? Is that what you're saying?
They just
they didn't have to buy them, and they just basically rented them from the designers themselves.
Oh,
and
they rent and then rent again.
Yeah.
As middlemen in that sense.
They don't have any costs at that point. They don't have to pay for the dress. They just get rental revenue.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. There would be nothing to it. It would just be an office, really.
Right.
Well, that one was easy. The next one, what decisions did Drew Houston make in Dropbox that favorably impacted his cash flow curve? Did he? Is that where he introduced like the premium like Dropbox option where they can pay for like a subscription?
Yeah. So any of the options that he offered where you could get more storage capacity, like those would impact cash flow positively. Because I don't know how else he was going to get any kind of cash flow if he offered it for free. So he had to have some sort of revenue stream coming through.
The only way I see on platforms like that is they'll make like a basically like YouTube where they have advertisers.
Yeah. Yeah. So now let's look at. Go for it, Jimmy.
Says now look at the choices GenapSys has from a cash flow standpoint. For each business model under consideration, compare the following. Net present value. If some of the options have similar net present value, which is riskier, is it advisable to take additional risk for a similar net present value? No.
Yeah, that's obvious.
So that's what I said. Question the second option, it's more risk, and there's less. It would just be scratched at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be very much the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah,
Go ahead.
So
how will GenapSys raise funds to support each option? Is any option clearly more attractive to investors? Support your answers in your discussion.
So I think it depends on what kind of investor you're looking at, because if you're like more of a short-term investor, then the traditional style is better. But if you are willing to kind of throw your money down for 10 to 20 years, then the is the better one.
And some investors they'll be willing to gamble.
Right.
It's more of a gamble, high risk, high return. But some people don't want that. They don't want to risk it. They just want they're fine with a 5-10% return and they're happy.
So I would say the traditional strategy is probably more attractive to investors because at the lowest point they're $10,000 into it. Yeah. But the data one you're 68,000 or $1 million invested, and if it doesn't take off from there, then you're kind of toast.
Because the other option is to wait a long time and to see if after a long time it becomes lucrative in the end, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Want to do that, right?
Kind of looking at this, I feel like the data side has so much risk, and the reward isn't that much higher than than the traditional strategy.
I think it could be. I mean, I'm thinking like beyond 10 years.
Beyond the 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess if you're just looking at the 10-year window, if you put this out to 20 or 15, it would be way higher.
Right.
Because that curve's going up pretty quick.
Yeah. But then again, you got the risk associated with it because, again, what if it doesn't take off? Because like it was funny to mess with the estimated growth rates because for data from years 1 to 5, it was 80% growth rate. But then it says for 6 years plus, it still had it at 50% growth rate. And so I would, like, if I bump that growth rate down to 30%, then the net present value is only 11 million. So
yeah,
the real question is whether or not they can maintain a huge, like a pretty good growth rate, which with that business model, they should be able to. But if they don't, then it will take them a long time to really make a decent profit.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting to mess with that because, again, these are all kind of assumptions. It's all you're really doing.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like the clearest option for investors would be traditional.
Yeah, for investors, definitely. Again, kind of going back to what the founders want, I think the founders would have to look. They'd have to look for somebody who's willing to put down the money long term, because the founders' goals are kind of long term, make an influence.
Yeah, they're more aligned with the data side.
Yeah.
Says how will they raise funds to support each option? I mean, there's a lot of ways to raise funds, but I don't know what they're looking for that here.
Yeah, I mean, like kind of on the next question, it says how much of the company will the founders have to give up to reach the goal? So, I mean, if you're looking at the data one, they'd probably have to give up quite a bit of their share of the company just to get that much financing.
Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, if the companies, that would be like the valuation.
Uh-huh.
And if they're looking for that much money, I mean, they're asking for more money than it's evaluated.
Right. Yeah, yeah, it really comes down to what the founders want. Because again, if money's not the issue, then they don't really care how much of a share of their company they're giving up. I mean, they could go down to like 10% of the share of their own company, as long as it works and it does good, then I'm sure they'll be happy with it.
Uh-huh. And for example, like the traditional strategy, if it seems to me that they need $10 million.
Yeah.
The present value is almost 38 million.
Right.
So if they were going to sell equity in the company, they would only have to sell 25%.
Yeah.
And then they would do enough. And then that way they keep 75% of the company.
Right. Yeah, with the other plan, they'd have to give up more than 50% of the company just to get the financing.
Uh-huh. I like this. It's kind of like, it makes you think. Oh yeah, we just discussed that. Okay, so we're on F. It says put yourself in the shoes of the owners, and I can't say their name. So the owners and the investors, you must decide as a group which business model you will choose. Be ready to explain this choice in a post-discussion write-up.
Yeah, well, so we have to do a write-up?
That might be
like the end of the week thing. There is an essay, by the way, this week.
An essay that we have to write individually, right?
I think so. So it might be included in that.
Okay. Well, I think we all agreed on a third option, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think between the first and the third option, you can go either way. It just depends on what your goals are.
Yeah. Wrote it down. Because his desire to help people, he's gonna make more money in the long run. That's probably where
The only thing that I'm getting confused on is if the lowest point in the curve is how much money you need, and the potential is less than that, then in my eyes, it's like it would just be X'd out. But I feel like there's something I'm missing. I don't know.
Yeah,
because you're borrowing $67 million and the potential earnings is $49 million. So you're like in the end, you're still in the red.
yeah.
But I don't know if this is assuming only a 10-year window. Are we assuming past that? I don't know.
No, so I don't think you're still in the red because the cumulative, once it hits 0, then you're like,
okay. Fine. Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
So the cumulative future cash flow is higher.
Yeah, because like it's just year after year. Like, so the first year you're $20,000 down. Then the next year, like from 2013 to 2014, you are down another 5,000 or something like that. Then you're another 5,000, another 5,000. I mean, it just adds upon all your debt. But then once you start making a profit, I mean, you in 2019 to 2020, you make 25,000 or 25 million.
Yeah.
So once it hits 0 in like 2022 or something like that, then like your cash flow is good. You've paid off your debt, or in terms of cash flow. So now you can start making a positive cash flow.
So yeah, that makes more sense. I was reading that wrong. Cool. I mean that makes it a little bit more clear. I mean, I'm all for the data side.
Yeah.
Probably the best way.
All
right, sweet, we did it. That was a good one.
Like the first one. This one was actually an hour.
This one was actually an hour. We started talking about 9:12, and I know you were having problems getting on, right? So
yeah, I got on at like 8:15, 8:12.
Yeah,
it's all good.
I just think the content was really good. We had a lot of stuff to kind of look at and look into, so I enjoyed it.
And then if you guys, if we start going over this Excel sheet, or if you guys have questions, I'm going to try to do it. And if I have questions, I'll reach out to you guys. And then for the essay as well, I don't know.
Do we have to submit this Excel sheet? Do you know?
Yeah, we do have to submit the Excel sheet.
Okay.
My worry is that we're going to get into detail about some of these older cases, and I don't want to read 6 cases.
Yeah.
So we have to turn an Excel spreadsheet for what again? I'm sorry.
This Excel spreadsheet that we've been going over, we have to turn it in with our. We have to turn it in.
Oh, okay. Okay, with our link, right?
Yeah, I think it'll probably take you probably about 45 minutes to do this.
Yeah. It won't take that long.
Maybe half hour. You can do it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've already gone over a lot of it, so we understand what's going on. So.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Well,